I think that Secretary Austin, behind closed doors, has made it very clear that if we authorize these long-range strikes, that Russia will come into a state of war with NATO and the United States, to put it bluntly. And that targets in Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Poland, Germany, Slovakia, Romania, and potentially other states in the region will be taken under fire by the Russians. They will launch missiles and destroy infrastructure that is essential to the sustainment of U.S. forces and allied forces in Eastern Europe. And that's a war that for which we are not prepared. And I think that Secretary Austin has made that privately very clear to the leadership in the White House. And as a result, I think there has been a certain amount of sobriety.
Israel has been engaged in a protracted conflict with Hamas in Gaza for months, with no clear resolution in sight. At the same time, concerns are growing about a possible land invasion of southern Lebanon, which could draw in Hezbollah, a powerful Shia militia backed by Iran. Adding to this, the Middle East is once again on the brink of a major military escalation as tensions rise between Israel, Lebanon, and various regional actors. The situation is further complicated by the presence of U.S. troops in Cyprus and recent changes in Russia's nuclear weapons policy, potentially shifting the geopolitical landscape. Colonel Douglas Macgregor offered his insights into these rapidly developing events in a recent discussion with Judge Andrew Napolitano on Judging Freedom. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and British Foreign Secretary David Lammy recently suggested a willingness to authorize long-range missile strikes against Russia, but these intentions were quickly tempered by President Biden's refusal to endorse such an escalation. The underlying concern is that such actions could provoke a direct military conflict between NATO and Russia, with dire implications for Eastern Europe. The intelligence community's leaders, including the heads of MI6 and the CIA, have acknowledged the potential for escalatory consequences if long-range strikes are permitted. Should the U.S. and its allies pursue these military options, they risk drawing Russia into a broader conflict, fundamentally altering the landscape of European security. Meanwhile, Putin views these moves as a direct threat to Russia's security and sovereignty, and Putin's updated nuclear doctrine reflects this growing concern. By expanding the list of states and alliances that could provoke a nuclear response, he is signaling that any military action against Russia, especially from non-nuclear states supported by NATO, will be met with serious consequences. His statements are part of a broader strategy to deter perceived aggression by emphasizing Russia's willingness to use nuclear capabilities if necessary. As for Putin's patience, it's not so much about wearing thin as it is about a calculated response to what he perceives as a gradual encirclement by Western military power. He is attempting to create a deterrent posture that will prevent further escalation. Each move by NATO or its allies to enhance military presence near Russia's borders is met with a firm stance from the Kremlin, which serves as both a warning and a reminder of the potential consequences of such actions. On the other hand, as Israel weighs its military options and Hezbollah prepares for possible retaliation, the region faces an uncertain and dangerous period. Meanwhile, Iran's potential involvement looms, and the United States and Russia continue to play significant roles, either directly or indirectly, in shaping the future of these conflicts. First of all, Israel's ongoing conflict with Hamas in Gaza has placed tremendous strain on its military resources, and now tensions with Hezbollah in southern Lebanon threaten to open another dangerous front. Meanwhile, U.S. military backing for Israel remains a critical factor in the country's operational decisions. Macgregor emphasized that Israel is heavily reliant on unconditional U.S. support, particularly in military operations. This support emboldens Israeli leadership, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, to pursue aggressive actions in the region. However, Macgregor cautioned that Israel's ability to handle multiple fronts, Gaza, the West Bank, and southern Lebanon, is limited, and further escalation could spark broader instability, especially in neighboring countries like Egypt and Jordan. Talking about Jordan, King Abdullah, speaking at the United Nations General Assembly, expressed his concern over the lack of global accountability and condemned the idea of forcibly displacing Palestinians into Jordan, calling it a war crime. However, Macgregor pointed out the precarious position of King Abdullah, who, like Egypt's General Sisi, is viewed by many in the region as aligned with U.S. and Israeli interests. This alignment, coupled with growing unrest in Jordan, puts his reign at risk. Macgregor further explained that both Jordan Jordan and Egypt have been strategically important to Israel and the U.S., with their leaders receiving significant financial and military aid. Yet, this close alignment with Israeli and American diplomacy has left them vulnerable to internal dissent and the possibility of violent regime changes. Therefore, the removal of a king or military leader in these contexts would likely come through force rather than diplomatic means. Currently, the spotlight is also on General Michael Eric Kurilla, head of the United States Central Command, who visited Israel twice in 1 week, meeting with both military and civilian leaders. While it remains unclear what specific messages General Kurilla conveyed during his visits, speculation has arisen. Some suggest that he might have warned Israel against overextending its military capabilities, particularly with the risk of provoking Iranian intervention. However, given the traditionally strong support the U.S. provides to Israel, this scenario seems unlikely to many. Therefore, Colonel Macgregor expressed doubts that Kurilla or any senior U.S. military official would question the U.S.'s unwavering backing of Israel. After all, Kurilla's confirmation of his post likely depended on maintaining a pro-Israel stance, and contradicting this could jeopardize his position. One critical aspect of this conflict is whether American troops could end up on the ground, especially if Israel pushes forward with a land invasion of Lebanon. According to military experts, the likelihood of American boots on the ground remains low due to several constraints. The U.S. simply doesn't have the available manpower to make a significant difference in a ground conflict in the region. With a regular army strength of about 450,000 and many forces already positioned in Eastern Europe due to the conflict in Ukraine, sending enough troops to the Middle East to have a real impact seems unrealistic. This is compounded by the fact that the U.S. Marines, although agile and effective, are not structured for long-term offensive operations in this kind of conflict. However, the U.S. can and is likely to provide substantial air and missile support. The current U.S. strategy involves supplying air power through carrier battle groups and bomber fleets, ready to assist Israel from bases as far away as Diego Garcia and Nebraska. This support is seen as a crucial component of Israel's military strategy, as it relies heavily on American air and missile power to bolster its own capabilities. A curious development in the situation is the deployment of U.S. troops to Cyprus. While the number of troops might be small, the move is seen as a potential escalation. Hezbollah has already indicated that if Cyprus becomes a launch pad for Israeli air or naval operations, it will be considered part of the war theater and could be targeted. This raises the stakes significantly, as Cyprus has been a long-standing point of contention between Turkey and Greece. The presence of U.S. troops in Cyprus could potentially draw these regional powers into the conflict, complicating an already volatile situation. Adding to this, the reaction to the U.S. government's approach is further complicated by statements made by officials like Deborah Lipstadt, the U.S. State Department envoy to combat anti-Semitism. Her remarks, which appeared to mock the concept of using technology as a tool for violence, drew sharp criticism. Many view such comments as not only disrespectful but also indicative of a larger trend in U.S. foreign policy that prioritizes Israeli interests over a more balanced approach to the region's complex dynamics. On top of this, the impact of massive bombing operations during World War II on German cities serves as a stark reminder of the complex dynamics of warfare and its effects on civilian morale and national resilience. Historical analysis shows that while such extensive bombing campaigns aim to break German resolve, they often had the opposite effect, stiffening resistance against the Allies. Meanwhile, the situation in the Middle East is inherently volatile, and it can quickly escalate into a larger conflict involving multiple actors. Due to the U.S. commitment to Israel, there is a scenario where Iran might feel pressured to respond to any perceived aggression from Israel. This could trigger a military escalation that involves not only Iran, but also its proxies, such as Hezbollah, and potentially other regional players like Turkey, which has its own strategic interests in the area. Moreover, the dynamics are further complicated by Russia and China's potential involvement. Both nations have vested interests in the region, and any significant U.S. military action against Iran could provoke a response from them. Russia has historically supported Iran, and both countries are likely to coordinate their efforts to counteract American influence in the Middle East. This coalition could alter the balance of power and lead to a more significant confrontation. As for Ukraine, while there are serious concerns about the ongoing conflict and the potential for escalation, the outcome may hinge on political developments in the U.S., particularly with the upcoming elections. If a shift in leadership occurs, there could be a real opportunity for negotiations and a potential resolution to the conflict. In summary, the risks of a major war breaking out are arguably greater in the Middle East than in Ukraine at this moment. Therefore, policymakers must navigate these complexities carefully to avoid a situation that could spiral out of control, especially in a region where many actors are ready to respond to perceived threats and aggression. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching.